really tremendous organization to work with, and the amount of professionality and experience in it is really inspiring, and it's just, again, good to be a part of. And so Bren has been around for about 10 years now. And so over the past decade, we've all been promoting the ecological enhancement of the river. And we have a website, as you can see on this slide here, that you can visit, and joining as a member is free. And you'll get updates about what Bren is up to, as well as opportunities to volunteer for Bren. We're always looking for help, whether it be at Woods Park and removing false indigo, or planting cottonwoods or willows for that fact too. We're also working in other areas. There's a notch project located at the head of Eagle Island area that is studying false indigo and is being headed up by Tamsin Bingeli. And then Liz Paul, our coordinator, is also working on a crayfish program to understand some of what is going on in the Boise River through the study of crayfish. And so another way to support Bren is to donate. And you can donate from our website. We're a nonprofit corporation. And I would just say that, once you start giving to the Boise River, there's good things that will give back. And I think that this presentation by Mayor Nancolas really will show that what you give to the river or creek, you really do get back a good return on investment. And so I would say that that's a similar approach to fundraising for Bren. And so once you get up to maybe that idea of maybe donating $50, it might be worth to consider making a monthly pledge of, say, $5, because that really allows Bren to have a sustaining form of fundraising going forward that we can really rely on. So with that, I would like to point out that our upcoming items on the schedule over the next month is a CT meeting, March 10th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And that's open to the public to attend. And it'd be really for those who want to see the inner workings of Bren and kind of see how the organization coordinates, hence the name, Coordinating Team Meeting. And then we also have another presentation about the Caldwell area. This one is for a current one-lane bridge at Plymouth Street. And the presentation is going to be by Tim Richard at the Caldwell Highway District number 4. This is going to be a presentation on the development of a new bridge crossing and turning the current bridge into a pedestrian pathway, and kind of the schedule behind all of that. And so that's on March 30th at 6 p.m. So make sure you know that that's at 6 p.m. That won't be at lunchtime. That's an evening presentation. And so with that, I'd like to conclude my description of promoting Bren and everything, and pass it off to Megan Dixon, who's going to introduce Mayor Nancolas. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I'm very pleased to be here today and be asked to introduce Mayor Garret Nancolas. I have been living in Caldwell for the past 14 years and working at the College of Idaho for just about all of that time. I am in the Environmental Studies Department and have had occasion to have students look at Caldwell and its development over the past several years. I live in Caldwell, less than a mile from downtown in what's called the Steunenberg District, and have had the pleasure of serving on the Caldwell Historic Preservation Commission, and that has also given me some insight into some of the mayor's accomplishments. And I, as it happens, was also on the Bren coordinating team for a few years up until a couple of years ago. So again, I'm very pleased to introduce the mayor to you this midday. People with vision sometimes get accused of being starry-eyed and impractical. In Mayor Garret Nancolas, Caldwell has had a leader who is not only visionary, but also strongly focused on the practical steps required to reach a goal, which has included many meetings for the many projects he's worked on. The daylighting of Indian Creek preceded my arrival to live in Caldwell in 2007, but I worked closely with two College of Idaho faculty who were both involved back in 2003 and 2004, Dr. Rochelle Johnson and Dr. Chris Walser, whom some of you may know. In a book printed in 2004 commemorating the mayor's vision titled Rediscovering Indian Creek, students from the College of Idaho wrote about the possibility of an Indian Creek surrounded by park space at the heart of a downtown filled with local businesses. It's really quite amazing to realize that over 20 years ago, Mayor Nancolas had a vision of what Caldwell could be with the necessary steps put in place. It's easy to underestimate how much patience and imagination it requires to see such long-term and transformational projects through to their completion. I won't try to reproduce here the mayor's biography from the city website, which I would invite everyone to read. It includes a long list not only of awards and accomplishments, but it also is a record of the many different ways that Mayor Nancolas has continued over the years to inform and educate himself about the many different approaches to managing and improving cities. It is clear that he has at some point involved himself in just about all of the many different aspects of city health that he possibly could, from transportation to environmental improvement. Of those many activities, I would highlight his focus on involving Caldwell's younger population in his Youth Advisory Council, and comment that when Caldwell someday realizes a truly widespread network of bike paths and lanes for our neighborhoods and schools, that will be part of the mayor's vision as well. On behalf of the College of Idaho, I would also like to thank Mayor Nancolas for his support of faculty and students in their Caldwell-related projects over the years. He has attended many presentations. Meanwhile, we can all thank him for Indian Creek. If your toddler has ever tossed stones into its pools, or if you have ever strolled across the bridges in downtown Caldwell hung with Christmas lights, you know that we have a place which beautifully links Caldwell's past to its bright future. And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to get everybody to take a 5-second break while I get the mayor's presentation up.
Well, while she's doing that, Megan, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. As you know, it takes an army of people to do a project like this or to change a community. It takes partnerships from the college, the school districts, the business community, the citizens, the employees, surrounding communities, government entities, federal entities, state, local. Things like this just simply cannot happen in a vacuum. And I am so grateful for the partnerships that have we've been able to establish over the years, and the many people who have been involved in transforming Caldwell from where it was a couple of decades ago to where it is now. And the transformation, in my humble opinion, is nothing short of phenomenal. Caldwell, I believe, has transformed and regained its prominence in the valley as what I call the treasure of the valley. Caldwell is a wonderful place to live, work, and play. I've lived here literally my entire life. Moved here when I was 5 years old, and I love this city. It is our home. I've raised a family here and now raising grandchildren here, and it's just a privilege to be able to be a part of this beautiful community. If I may, just to start out a little bit before we jump right into the presentation, let me give you just a little history of Caldwell itself. When I was a child, Caldwell was the gathering place of the valley. We had Sears, JCPenney's, Idaho Department Store, Knapsager's. We had music stores. We had activity downtown, and people came from all around the valley to shop and be a part of Caldwell community. That changed with the coming of urban malls. Caldwell chose to push away what is now Karcher Mall, and back then it was the mall in the valley. For some reason, they decided that it was would be competition for the businesses in town, and I understand that they wanted to preserve the wonderful businesses that were here. The unintended negative consequence was that once Karcher Mall built in its current location, that within a very short period of time, all those businesses in downtown moved to Karcher Mall. Sears went there, JCPenney's went there, Idaho Department Store went there, Nafziger Men's Store went there. And so Caldwell's downtown became a ghost town. It really did. But prior to that, as I mentioned, when I was a kid, my mom took me to see Sword in the Stone at the movie theater in downtown Caldwell. She'd take my brother and I downtown. We would go to the movie theater. She would drop us off. She'd go to Safeways and do the grocery shopping, and then run over to Sears or wherever she needed to go. And they had these movie tickets. There was 8 movies during the summertime. You could buy them for $5 for 8 movies. Would that be nice today? Anyway, we got to see Herbie the Love Bug and Sword in the Stone and just all the Disney movies you can imagine in downtown Caldwell. And then when Mom would pick us back up from the movie, she would take us down to the local fountain, and we would have a chocolate a soda for 25 cents. And it was amazing. And there were crazy days downtown, and the stores had their products out on the sidewalks, and it was a gathering place. And unfortunately, all that changed, as I mentioned, with the coming of urban malls. Also, part of Caldwell's history, of course, is Indian Creek, which ran right through Caldwell, right down through the main part of town. And as you can see, the first slide says reversing bad past decisions of Caldwell. One of those things Indian Creek is a natural flowing creek. It's spring fed. It may range in cubic feet per second between 80 or 90 cubic feet per second on a real low time, up to 300 or 400 cubic feet per second. I think the average is somewhere around 150 cubic feet per second, but it runs all year long through Caldwell. It also is the drainage for hundreds and hundreds, literally hundreds of acres of farm ground. So at times, the creek is beautiful and clear, as it is in the wintertime. And then during the summertime, because it does drain a lot of agricultural property, it kind of turns a little bit different color. But in the past, also, if you go down, walk along the creek, there are big, big pipes still are evident from years past practices, where unfortunately Indian Creek also served as a place to put people's sewer. We also know that there were manufacturing and packaging plants that dumped their waste into Indian Creek. And it was a really undesirable creek that ran through the city of Caldwell. Rats didn't smell very well. And so they decided to entomb the creek. And so the Indian Creek entombment took place all through the city of Caldwell. And so the creek, out of sight, out of mind, all those problems went away. Parking lots, businesses were built over the top of the creek. And so under the city of Caldwell ran Indian Creek and hid that what could be beautiful, beautiful amenity. So many moons ago, we understood that vision is the best manifestation of human imagination and the primary motivation of human action. It gives us capacity to create what does not yet exist and to become what we not yet are. And the best part of it is it allows us to live out of our imagination instead of our memory. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to imagine what could we do. So in the beginning, we held a community-wide visioning session and a plan for Caldwell in all different things. We talked about crime. We talked about the fact that Caldwell was not developing. We talked about our downtown and what it used to be and how could we recreate that environment and that vitality in our downtown, create that heart and soul of a community like we used to know when I was a kid, right? And so we came together and we decided that we put together a 15-year plan, which took longer than that, but we had to start somewhere, right? And we had to have a plan. And you've all heard that, of course, a vision without a plan is only a dream. But I also submit that a vision without a funding mechanism is a hallucination. And so we had to develop this plan, but we also had to develop a funding mechanism because there was so much work that needed to be done. And so obviously the urban renewal district, the redevelopment plans for the city of Caldwell all had to be changed, all had to be created if they didn't exist, which the Urban Renewal Agency did not exist until 1998. And we came together as a community and decided we needed to do something which included, again, water, sewer, economic development, streets, our treatment plant, parks, walking paths, all of those things. But a centerpiece of that was the historic downtown. So if we could go to the next slide. Downtown, as I mentioned, you can see this is the path of the creek. You see it highlighted there. It ran underneath the fire station. It ran underneath buildings, parking lots. And this was entombed from 1936 to 1966. That's when the process took place. And then, so of course, it was entombed for the entire time that I was a child. And again, until, well, about 2001, when we started working on this again. So the Indian Creek Entombment was, again, this beautiful amenity, and you can see that it is not anywhere near the route that it runs today. So as we started to talk about this project, we had all kinds of ideas for downtown, and thank heavens, we had if you go to the next slide, Liz, we had a group of downtown residents, downtown business owners who were very, very excited about changing downtown. And so the community participation was a huge piece. We put together a planning and assessment piece for downtown. Obviously, we looked into Brownsville for green space. We didn't really have a lot of money at the time. Caldwell was struggling and was not growing. We wanted to make sure that we included the new urbanism concepts. We wanted to make sure that we created a vision that truly could happen. Part of it is putting a plan together that really is reality. Now, I've also been a believer that you don't set your goals too high. That's not the fear. The fear is, the fear is not that you set your goals too high and you don't achieve them. The fear is that you set your goals too low and you do achieve them. And that's where you stop. And so we wanted to make sure that we created a vision that was attainable, but we did shoot for the stars. We wanted to do something extremely bold and brave that would change and recreate a new downtown for the city of Caldwell. And as I mentioned, the three most important things in getting this thing accomplished were partnerships, partnerships, and partnerships. If you go to the next slide, Liz. Here's just an idea of the list. And trust me, when you are trying to mess with water, and also one that the public thinks is not a pleasant waterway, my goodness, it takes all kinds of partnerships to learn about the process, to figure out how we can do it, to learn about the environmental issues, the hydrology issues. We found out the hard way that sometimes our federal government entities don't communicate very well with one another, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we had to talk about traffic analysis, and of course the National Park Service and Department of Water Resources, Department of Fish and Game, EPA, DEQ, also the Economic Development Administration. We wanted to make sure that we were partnering with those folks and bringing those dollars into the city of Caldwell, because we knew that if we did this properly, it would recreate a very vital downtown that would attract businesses, attract people, create the critical mass that we needed for success. And so here's a list of all the partners that we were able to work with through the development of this process. You can see the total value of the process was around 25 million, and that's not just the creek itself, but all the many, many other projects that were water, sewer. We found, I think, Liz, I told you this once, we found in downtown Caldwell that we had wooden sewer pipes. Now, many of you know that with wood and water and time, that's not a good thing as far as holding sewage in these pipes as they got older. And so we had all kinds of environmental issues downtown that we also had to deal with. The other thing that we found out downtown is that one point in time throughout our history, there was probably a gas station or a dry cleaner on every corner in the city of Caldwell. Now that's exaggerating, but we had so many issues with dry cleaning fluid and leaks from gasoline station, old fuel tanks that were dilapidated and had leaked fuel. The good thing is that downtown Caldwell has a very thick caliche layer that pretty much runs throughout the entire downtown. So fortunately for us, it trapped those that perk and those petroleum leaks above that caliche layer, so it did not permeate down through into the water system. And so it was so nice to be able to have that protection, but it also made it very, very difficult for us to build a creek, not to permeate that that caliche layer and then mix the aquifers. That would be just devastating. We also had to deal with how do we clean up downtown Caldwell. So again, these are just a list of the partners that we not had to, but we wanted to work with to make sure that this project was successful. Go ahead to the next slide, Liz, if you could. So again, this was a grassroots-led steering committee. We had a group of people called the Core Area Steering Committee. And again, this is something that's so important, is to involve the community. We had a group of citizens that literally met every Monday for years. This project was from conception to completion was well over 8 years. It took a long time to get this done. And I can't believe it, but these dedicated group of individuals, business people, they stuck with us from day one. They were part of the visioning process. Of course, including the business community is essential. We had to do something different with downtown, that we actually had to have partnership from businesses who are willing to say, yeah, I'll move. You can have my property, buy my property, not have it, buy my property, so that you can create this new stream bed that was so important to the recreation of the creek downtown. Also, brownfields assessments, that was absolutely essential, working with our partners there to get those assessments done. You can also see that we wanted to create an open space, a place where people could come and gather. And how do we incorporate that along with the revitalization of the creek itself? And then, of course, what we tried to do is to include the planning and zoning component of it. We had to create a city center redevelopment project, but also then the planning around that. Where do we have open space? Where do we have businesses? What type of businesses do we want to have downtown? So we created an entire what's called the framework master plan that talks about uses and styles and buildings and architectural design and colors and plants and trees and sidewalks and everything that would go along with this creek project, because it was essential that we just didn't open the creek. We also had to have a plan for the development around that creek after the project was done. If you go to the next slide, please, Liz. All right, so see, these are some of the initiatives that were done. And for the other cities that were on here, I think these initiatives are absolutely essential. I guess what I would say is that time is secondary in accomplishing these projects, because we want them done quickly. But anytime you're dealing with a major renovation like this, it does take time. So if there's anything I could encourage you, is patience is a virtue through these projects. Expect the unexpected. The only thing that was consistent was change. We had to have so many different changes and adjustments to this project. But again, because we had these planning initiatives and went through the process, when it was ultimately time to start digging the ditch or the creek, excuse me, that we had to reroute the creek through downtown Caldwell, that we had done our homework. And that is so important. So the daylighting feasibility study and design was done by the Corps of Engineers, the National Park Service, the Economic Development Administration. It was so important to have that feasibility study and design done. The revitalization study and plan, the steering committee was McKibben and Cooper and Leland Associates, Diane Cushlan, CH2M Hill, Jensen Belts, and then Stanley Brunn. These were so important. These different groups and people that we associated ourselves were absolutely essential in helping us put together the revitalization study and plan. The worst thing you can do is come out of one of these things and say, okay, now what do we do next, right? Like the dog chasing the car, now we've caught the car, well, what do we do with it? So we had several different initiatives going at the same time, which certainly included the redevelopment of the creek itself, but also all of the downtown as a whole had to be taken into consideration, because at the end of this project, we wanted to make sure that we didn't just have a pretty creek running through town, but that it itself was the catalyst to recreating this beautiful and vibrant downtown that we wanted. And then, of course, the daylighting and design and stormwater design, brownfield assessment was done by Kleinfelter Spectrum, the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality and EPA. And then our daylighting design and stormwater design was done by CH2M Hill. And again, remember, this is basically an 8-year project from vision to completion. So this is something that I would advise you to make sure that you involve your partners, do the research, make sure that the planning process is complete. Now, the second part of that is we probably had, I'm sorry, this is a guesstimate, 50 or 60 public meetings. We held those meetings at the College of Idaho. We held them at the library. We held them downtown. We held them at City Hall. we included the public every step along the way. We included the Chamber of Commerce, the College of Idaho, our Parks and Recreation Department. We included the school districts. We included our students, as was mentioned by earlier, that we have all along this process. We included the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We included students from the high school. We included students from the College of Idaho. This truly was a community-driven project. Now, I have to admit, at first, some people didn't like it so much. I was actually in a community meeting, and one of the members in the community stood up and said, if you go forward with this stupid, idiotic idea, we're going to start a recall. This is the stupidest idea I've ever seen in my entire life, and we're going to recall you, and you don't deserve to be mayor. So also be prepared for the fact that maybe not everybody's going to support the project, but we believed it was the right thing to do at the right time for the right reasons, and we moved forward. As a side note to that, the gentleman that stood up and wanted me recalled at that meeting, it was very wonderful. About 3 years ago, he called me up and said, I apologize. I was wrong. This is amazing what's happening in this community, and I just want you to know I apologize. Now, he didn't have to do that. I mean, this was 15 years ago he made that comment. But anyway, it's amazing how the community of Caldwell has come together. So if you go to the next slide, Liz. And by the way, thank you for your help, Liz. I appreciate it very much. So you can see the before and after. You might call it serendipitous. There was a car wash that was actually built across the creek. And you can see that it fell into the creek. It was not planned, obviously. It just was one of those things that the creek, when it was entombed, shall we say, the engineering requirements and building requirements were much different back then than they are today. They actually built some of these bridges and put concrete and pavement over them that were wood. They were wood timbers. Wood and water don't go very well together. We actually found some of the bridges that were old railroad cars, the flatbed railroad cars that they had used in the struts from those. And those had rusted out. So the entombment was a major project for them back in those days, but certainly it wasn't built to last a lifetime. So we discovered many issues with the project itself, but as you can see, before and after is dramatically different. But we did have this downtown, as I say, the creek ran underneath the downtown. What we discovered is that in order for us to do this project and to not disrupt the business community any more than we had to, we had to redesign the route of this creek several times because there were property owners that did not want to sell. And we had made a commitment that we would not use any kind of condemnation action or any kind of heavy-handed action from the city. We wanted this to be a community-driven project. So the route and design actually changed several times from beginning to end because some of the property owners just didn't want to sell or they didn't want to be involved in the project, and we respected that. And so we redesigned the project. Now, something else that happened in the middle of this project is earlier you had seen that we had worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we had applied for and received a Section 206 grant application for the restoration of this creek. It was based upon riparian habitat and restoring that habitat. And so we received the grant. It was a 65-35 grant. And so the city's portion of this was buying the properties, doing the design work, that type of thing. And then, of course, the other piece of it from Army Corps of Engineers was actually helping with design, but also then the construction. Right in the middle of this project, we had actually been about 2 years into the grant. We'd already purchased all the property. We were in it. We were fully in it, our 35%. And Congress decided that they were no longer going to do Section 206 grants, and they pulled the funding from us. Oh, that was not good news for us. So back to that, a vision without a funding mechanism is only a hallucination. Well, the funding mechanism that we had hoped for was suddenly gone. And again, major hiccup in getting this thing moving forward. But this project shows the dedication, determination, and stick-to-itiveness of the citizens in the city of Caldwell. So we regrouped, we rewrote the urban renewal plan. We changed some of the projects in the plan, which back at that time was acceptable to do. You couldn't do that under today's current legislation, but at the time we were able to do that. So we rewrote the plan. It took us a year to do that. And we then incorporated this stream project under the urban renewal project and plan, and under its funding mechanism. And so then the urban renewal agency took over where we lost the funding from the Section 206 funding, and the urban renewal agency took over, and obviously it moved on. Now, sometimes that might, sometimes there's a silver lining or a blessing in disguise. Because of the Section 206 funding, it was solely focused on the riparian habitat and designing this creek in its natural state. So I guess the blessing is that once we had our own funding, then we decided to do something a little different. We decided to add walking paths and electrical systems so we could light the creek up, and we put in street lights, and we added more grass and more regular grass, and instead of natural grasses. We did do some of that, but we then were able to design this project ourselves. And so this became a design build project. So once the urban renewal agency took over, that's what we did. If you could go to the next slide, please. So 1,550 feet of stream were restored with natural features and the look that you see today. But again, the benefit is we also then were able to add 6 acres of what we call city park. So this particular problem turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as I mentioned. So as we started designing this project, we were able to put in some of the features that I guess were more conducive to a downtown restoration project that would bring people to the area. And again, we're able to put in walking paths and bike trails, footbridges, things that we may not have been able to do under the original plan. So I guess the blessing in disguise is we ended up with probably a prettier project that is more pedestrian friendly, opened the creek up a little bit more, and certainly became the destination point for downtown Caldwell. Again, 6 acres. This is just a beautiful project. And we literally did a design build. As we were starting to dig out the creek, this is something else I would advise you if you're trying to do this, be prepared to find anything and everything. We found, again, buried cars. We found gasoline tanks that nobody knew existed. We found structures that nobody knew existed that were buried at some point in time. And so in doing this project, we discovered all kinds of fun things. It was kind of turned into a treasure hunt. Some treasure not so good as others, but we were able to do it and design it, add rocks, riffles. We were able to add features to the creek that made it very desirable. And we ended up with, as I say, 1,550 feet of stream that was entombed, that is now daylighted and has become truly the centerpiece of downtown Caldwell. If you could go to the next one, please. So again, as part of the planning initiatives, the new city center zoning district was designed, the framework master plan. Oh, by the way, I saw one question up. The bridges that you see across Indian Creek now, and I just saw the question flash up. Those are actually the trusses out of the old Idaho department store. We use some of the trusses out of the building and the framework from a lot of the timber out of the Idaho department store. And so from a historic standpoint, we wanted to make sure that we preserve some of that. So those wooden bridges, footbridges that you see in the city of Caldwell across the stream at 6th Street and 7th Street, those are timbers and trusses all out of the Idaho department store that were saved and used as a historic feature to remember that beautiful building, because that building came down in order to make way for the creek. And so we saved as many of those timbers as possible, and those were incorporated into the design of those bridges. And so those are some of the original timbers from the Idaho department store. Again, the goal was to try to make this as historic as we could, remember the history of Caldwell, but to recreate a new part of Caldwell that recreated that heartbeat of downtown Caldwell. So let's go to the next slide if we could. So this is the redevelopment planning piece that was so important to redesign and re-energize downtown Caldwell. We wanted downtown Caldwell to truly be a gathering place where people could come. It certainly needed to be safe. We wanted to preserve the history of that beautiful downtown that we have. So you can see that many of those buildings have been preserved. As a matter of fact, we created incentives to preserve those buildings. We created incentives through the Urban Renewal Agency to preserve the facades. And if you take a look at our framework master plan, we have incorporated many of the original designs and architecture so that the new buildings do look new, but they also don't take away from the existing architecture from downtown. And we certainly wanted to have residential in downtown. Downtown Caldwell literally had hardly any residential at all. And we realized that if we wanted to have a vibrant downtown, we needed to have the critical mass, and residential growth was part of that desire. So we changed our planning and zoning ordinances. We created a framework master plan, as I mentioned earlier, but we also created a city center zoning district that took into consideration the commercial space, gathering place. It allowed for a plaza, which obviously you see that we've obtained that, but it talked about open space. It talked about the commercial zones, business zones, recreation zones, and then also multi-use. We wanted to make sure that as we redid our master plan, or our planning and zoning ordinance, we allowed for multi-use and different uses within the same building, where our existing zoning ordinances didn't allow that. So we really had to go to work, again, included the community, and we completely redid our zoning ordinances for downtown. We had to take a look at everything from parking to walkability. And again, our goal was to create this beautiful downtown where people would come downtown and park their car and then spend an afternoon there. You know, and as you know, we have a movie theater downtown now. Unfortunately, the pandemic has changed movie going. We hope it will open again soon. But a movie theater, restaurants, we have the creek itself. We have this new beautiful plaza. All of these things were features of what we wanted to create when we created this redevelopment plan for downtown Caldwell. You know, we wanted to make sure that we brought our students from the College of Idaho downtown, that we connected the downtown with the college and the community just 10 blocks from downtown. Being able to have a great place for those college students to come was so important to our overall planning process. And that's, of course, why we included those many students that were involved in this planning process. I think Professor Melchiori and her class were involved on several steps of this. Again, and as Megan mentioned, we had numerous partnerships with the College of Idaho professors in the classes as we moved this project forward. And again, we wanted a community gathering place. We wanted this to be the premier gathering place in Idaho. What's really kind of neat is we just were recognized as the #1 outdoor gathering place in Treasure Valley, which surprised us because we were competing against the village over in Meridian. But what's happened is truly phenomenal. And again, couldn't have been done without all the partners. We also wanted to take in the fact that this is a beautiful stream. This is part of the waterways. We wanted kids to fish there. So we worked with the Fish and Game Department, and we plant fish in Indian Creek each spring, and we have these community gathering events, and kids go downtown and fish. And we have the Indian Creek Festival, and we have cardboard kayak races down the creek, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that, you need to come to Caldwell. That is a hoot. The rules are duct tape and cardboard, and that's all you can use to make these canoes or kayaks or boats. And we have these races down the creek, and it is phenomenal. I can tell you that we actually made national news. I was actually back in Washington, D.C. A couple years ago when we still could travel, and flashed up on the screen. Or on TV, they know how to have fun in Caldwell, Idaho. And they showed a blip of those cardboard kayaks going down Indian Creek and people laughing. And of course, one of the kayaks turned over, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful publicity for the city of Caldwell. And what had happened is Channel 7 had filmed that. And then I can't remember which national media it was, had picked up on that and just flashed up this, how they do the thing across the bottom of the screen, the little ribbon. But they showed Caldwell, Idaho in Washington, D.C. while I was back there attending a conference. So, but we also wanted to connect and use our natural resources. The creek is a beautiful natural flowing creek. And as we were doing this, we also wanted to take into consideration, how can we clean up the water going through the creek? So we created natural riffles. We designed this creek so that it had trees along the creek to help with temperature. We planted those creeks for phytoremediation so that we could remove impurities out of the ground, and those things that came from the creek and permeated the ground, that those would be remediated through the trees. And so actually what we did was very strategic, even with the plantings of trees and the types of trees, so that we could use phytoremediation to take care of some of the impurities in the downtown area. And of course, another thing is back to nature, right? This was a connection back with nature. This creek that had been hidden, this beautiful creek that had been hidden and misused for so many years, we were able to reconnect back to nature. And the people that come down and just sit on the banks and look at the creek, or again, the fishing. We have people that play water volleyball in the creek certain times of the year. I mean, just this reconnection with people back to the creek was certainly one of the main goals of recreating this project. Next slide, please. Obviously, new urbanism includes the mixed use and diversity that I was talking about earlier, the environmental restoration, but a key piece of this was sustainability. As we designed this, we wanted to make sure that we created this sense of place that you've heard about so often, that it's walkable. You know, the last thing we want is people to come downtown, park their car in front of a business, get out, go in that business, get back in their car and leave downtown. What we wanted to do was to create a walkable downtown that encouraged people to spend a day or an afternoon or an evening there and get out and walk around and enjoy the creek, enjoy the businesses, have a bite in a restaurant. Obviously now enjoy the activities at the plaza, maybe go to a movie. And so that was really our goal, was to create a sense of place that was favorable to the quality of life that we wanted for our citizens and our families. You know, at the very beginning of this, and I apologize for not mentioning it, we decided very early on that the family was the most important unit in Caldwell, that we wanted to do everything that we could to make sure that our families had the opportunity to live, work, grow, be educated, be safe, have a beautiful downtown, and that we wanted to help our families succeed. And so that was the centerpiece of all the plans that we put together early on, is how can we make a better city for our families? How can we have a city that our kids want to come back to, that they're proud of, that they can work here, that they can tell their friends and family, we're from Caldwell. You know, it wasn't that long ago. Caldwell's reputation was not very good, unfortunately. Some of it was deserved and some of it wasn't. And so our goal was to change that perception. And that this project also was a huge piece of that. We wanted to become a destination point like we were 25 and 30 years ago. So all of these pieces fit together. And of course, the goal of that is who benefits? The families do. Jobs, opportunity, recreation, people coming to our community. When we started this project, the population of Caldwell was just probably around 32, 33,000. Caldwell's population now is 62 or 63,000, somewhere in there. We were the 15th largest city in the state of Idaho when we started this project. Most likely, depending on the census, we are probably the 5th largest city, maybe even the 4th largest city in the state of Idaho. But we wanted to maintain our identity. We don't want to become, no offense, we don't want to be Meridian or Boise or Idaho Falls or Twin Falls. We want to be Caldwell. So part of our goal here was to create something different that was unique to Caldwell, that was who we are, represented our goals, our family, our goals. And so we again wanted to make sure that we preserve that historical architectural design, but incorporate some of the new urban design to make sure that we were providing something that was new and refreshing, but also preserve the integrity of the old. Real quickly, go to the next one, and I'm about out of time here, so I'll try to wrap it up real quick. Obviously, we created new streetscape and building design concepts that are guidelines that, again, that took into consideration our historic quality, and I think we've done very well with that. We've seen, you know, if you've been to downtown Caldwell, you've seen so many of these existing buildings that have been renovated. They had metal covering, the beautiful brick that's been taken off and restored to the beautiful brick that was there. You know, concentrating on the unique design of Caldwell. We've restored the train depot. I mean, Caldwell really has taken a look at itself and decided, how can we make ourselves better? And so part of that was new streetscape and building design guidelines, but also preserving the history. If you could go to the next slide, please. Also, we had these thematic districts, of course, that considered Old Town, the cultural district, the Civic Mall. And again, we followed that process, but we had this was a part of the original design, and we have followed that very closely to make sure that, again, we didn't want a plan that you just put on the shelf and then blow the dust off of it every 2 or 3 years and look at it. And, you know, we wanted a plan that was dynamic and able to be used, and this plan has been used literally A to Z. Next slide, please. So again, let the adventure continue. You know, I talked about the Indian Creek Festival. Well, those boats you see are actually made out of cardboard and duct tape. They could not use anything else. You can see the people gathering downtown Caldwell. It wasn't that long ago. I could have sighted my hunting rifle in on Main Street and not worried about hitting anybody. That's a sad statement. I'll tell you what, that is not the case today. Downtown is vibrant. It is active. We have people coming from all over the valley. This Indian Creek Festival, usually 8,000 or 10,000 people show up from all around to this Indian Creek Festival. Next slide, please. Again, you see the business community that has thrived or has come to Caldwell since the creek has begun. We have the new Real Theater, 11 screens. It is one of the most advanced as far as technology is concerned. It's got the Atmos surround sound and the recliner seats, and it's just a beautiful facility. And we're hoping and praying that Hollywood releases some movies soon, so it can be the vibrant place it once was. Next slide, please. And again, the Indian Creek Plaza. This is probably the centerpiece of downtown now. To give you an example, those two bridges across Indian Creek, we have ped counters on the one on 7th Street. You go back prior to downtown in the creek, and again, very few people in downtown. Once the creek opened, we were getting about 100,000 to 130,000 visitors crossing that creek. Now, with Indian Creek Plaza and the ice skating and the music and the wine tasting and the businesses and the restaurants and everything that happens there, we had in 2019, this was not the COVID year, but prior to COVID, and the second year after the plaza opened, on the 7th Street Bridge, between November 1st and January 15th, we had over 400,000 crossings, pedestrian crossings of that bridge. That is an amazing statistic. And again, if you look at the license plates, they are, all around the valley, but not just Idaho. There are plates from Oregon, Washington, Montana, all around us, Nevada. It's amazing that the interest at this and the excitement that this plaza and the creek have caused. Next slide, please. Again, if you go back to the last one, it shows the ice skating ribbon. We are one of 6 in the entire nation. You can see the number of people that are down there ice skating on a cold day. And then the last thing I'll mention, of course, you in the initial photo, you saw the lights. My gosh, we have 1 million lights in downtown Caldwell. It's free. It is incredible what those lights look like. If you haven't been downtown Caldwell during the wintertime, you need to come. So I apologize, I'm out of town at the time. I could go on and on and on. This creek is an amazing amenity, and obviously our goal was to take this beautiful amenity and turn it into its natural state, but also to use it as an economic development tool, a family enrichment tool. It's worked. So with that, I'll close, Liz, and time goes by way too fast.
We've got lots of time for questions. Put your questions in the chat. I think there's a few in there, and Adam is gonna pose the questions for you, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome.
All right, yeah. So everyone, just another reminder that please ask your questions in the chat box there. And all I have right now is one from Liz White, and it's really directed towards are there any future plans, and what kind of are those? And then specifically, is there any plan to take down the Keystone Pizza building for more beautification?
Well, first I'll address the Keystone Pizza building. Obviously, that's part of our pledge to not be heavy-handed. The owner there is ecstatic with the activity downtown. I know his business is extremely good. And so it's up to him if he ever comes to us and says, I'd like to sell my building, or if he goes to the economic development folks and asks for their assistance in selling that, we'll certainly assist him. But it is not part of our plans to do anything with that. We're going to let Economics 101 take care of that. And I'm guessing at some point in time that property will become more valuable than its current use. And I'm assuming at that time it will change. As far as further plans for downtown, we have an RFP that is just about ready to begin where the old Saratoga building is. You know that dirt parking lot, if you're familiar with that. That is called Creekside Plaza. we have a proposal from a developer that we'll hear the final decision on next Monday night, or excuse me, March 8th. I apologize, not March 1st, March 8th. That includes a mixed-use building with restaurants and retail on the bottom floor, with office space on the second floor, and then 3 floors of at market or above market housing overlooking the creek and the plaza in the downtown area. I don't know the exact dollar figure, but we're thinking that's around a $30 million investment in downtown Caldwell. So that is the next phase of redevelopment. And that's a partnership with the city, the Urban Renewal Agency, and of course the private sector. The Urban Renewal Agency bought that property, cleaned it up environmentally, and then put it out as an economic development project. And so we think that will begin construction hopefully yet this year. So that's the next major development. And really that kind of consumes the last piece. We do have another RFP for a piece of property right across from the plaza on Kimball Street. That RFP closes, I believe, in the middle of March. And we have several applications for that one presented by developers. So there, yes, there are more economic development projects, but as far as the creek itself, it is finished. As far as downtown, now we do, as you know, we just did expand across 10th Street. We built a pedestrian underpass there and expanded the creek 1 block towards 11th Street. So that is an expansion. And yes, we do hope that we can continue to enhance the creek all the way down to 21st, but that will be a slow and expensive process, but it is part of our goals for long term.
Very neat. So another question from Scott White. Were any archaeological discoveries requiring evaluation, appraisal, permitting encountered during excavation of the creek?
No, there were not, Scott. Thank you for the question. What we did discover, like I mentioned, were a lot of hidden treasures, like gasoline tanks and dry cleaner perk tanks. And we did discover some, buried cars and things like that, but nothing, unfortunately, of any archaeological value. Now, we did try to save the bridges over 5th Street and preserve the history there. But to be honest with you, we just really didn't find anything of archaeological value that we were made aware of. And of course, we were monitoring the project completely as it went along. So unfortunately, there was nothing there.
All right, well, thank you. I kind of had a question actually related to that. You mentioned that there were some train cars used in the entombment of Indian Creek. Were those, do you know if those were part of the interurban railway before getting put there? And when that got decommissioned, they got moved there?
I don't think so. I think that those were just they look like just standard flatbed, the flat cars that you see, and then the side support. Looks to me like they literally used flat cars, old flat cars, took the wheels off of those and used those for the supports. So I don't think it had anything to do with the interurban rail. But yeah, we used to have public transportation way back when. It was pretty robust, went all around the valley. But I don't think there was any part of that. So thank you.
All right, and then let's see, we've got another one from, this one's from Megan Dixon. What is the prospect for extending repairing restoration beyond the ends of the walkways, say going west of the police station?
Actually, we're in the process right now of continuing that walking path so that it connects with the Boise River. We have purchased some right of way, and as you know, we extended it down a little bit with the Densho Gardens. We will begin work on connecting that path a little further this year. And then, of course, going towards the college, we have a CDBG project that is actually just waiting on the sewer line in Arthur Street to be replaced. But we are building a 10-foot wide path similar to what's along the creek that will extend from the extension of the creek on 11th all the way down to 21st. There will be a multimodal walking, riding, bicycle pathway. It'll be plenty wide enough so that you have room for pedestrians on one side and bicycles on the other. And it will connect the downtown to 21st, which is literally across the street from the college. That project is already designed and it's already funded. It's just we're waiting on the sewer project to be completed. It's a very deep sewer line. It's about 30 feet deep going down Arthur. So the bids on that should be coming in this week to do the sewer project. We think the sewer project is about 6 months long. And then we will begin the pathway project down 11th Street, down Arthur Street from 11th all the way to 21st. And then as we can, we will also include the improvements along the creek itself. On the Norman property, which is just across 21st Street, which is by the rodeo grounds, that parking lot begins construction this year. And along the creek there, which we have access to, we will also do with the creek there, like we have done downtown. And so the design of the pathway with grass and trees and those type of things will be constructed this year from 21st to where the creek intersects with Stock Trail Road. So there are some improvements planned, but obviously we don't have the continuity from downtown all the way to 21st along the creek because of residences and things that we certainly don't want to interfere with those families. So.
Wow, that is a lot going on. Very impressive.
Keep busy.
Yeah. And so another question from Kevin Fagan. He wanted to congratulate you on the excellent work, and then please tell more about, I might need some help with this one, FIDOR mediation techniques used as part of the project.
Well, thank you. And Kevin, thank you for the kind compliment, and thank you for the question. As I mentioned, one of the ways as we dealt with some of the perk and with some of the petroleum is that we had choices of either to excavate and haul it off, or the other choice is if we chose the right types of trees, they have the ability through their root system to extract some of those things through the ground and then out through the leaf system and obviously into the air. That is called FIDO remediation. And I believe it is FIDO. I'm not sure. It's not like woof woof dog. I thought we were going to put dogs down there when they first started talking about doing FIDO remediation. I thought they were talking about have dogs go drink the water and run away or something, but that's a joke. But anyway, FIDO remediation is using the natural growth, the natural trees and plants along the river to use their root systems to extract some of those impurities out of the ground, and then just through natural process, they go through the tree and out into the air. And I had never even heard of that before we started this creek process.
Wow, very cool. And so let's just jump to the next question here. Liz White, are there any similar plans to develop the area around the new replacement bridge coming up in Caldwell over the Boise River?
Well, kind of, sort of, yes. We have purchased, and thank you for the question, I apologize. We have purchased 9 acres of ground right next to the old Silver Bridge that we are planning to do an Oregon Trail commemoration park. As you know, the Oregon Trail came across the top of Canyon Hill. That's where they crossed the Boise River. And then Rutledge Lane on the other side of the river is where they also came up on the other side of the canyon there. So this has some very historic value for the Oregon Trail. And we have purchased those 9 acres. So our goal is to create a very natural park along the river that recognizes and acknowledges the Oregon Trail and its contribution to our community and of course the history of it. And then it will be kind of an open space with places for picnics and gathering and walking paths, things that when the river raises, we don't want to have anything destroyed. So we're not going to spend a lot of money in any kind of features other than something that water won't hurt. But again, walking paths, and then the natural habitat that would go along the river, and then acknowledgements of the Oregon Trail and its history.
Great, more good stuff. And Liz Paul asking, where does the creek originate and where does it go?
Well, the creek originates actually over just that Indian Creek Reservoir that's between Boise and Mountain Home. It originates in the foothills there. It comes into that little reservoir and then flows down through the canal system through Kuna, and then obviously there's water that's diverted, but it originates actually in the foothills above between Mountain Home and Boise. And I apologize, I can't remember the name of the drainage, but it flows all through there. And again, it's naturally fed with springs along the way. Whitney, thank you. The Whitney foothills, the Whitney system just outside of Boise and between Mountain Home. So that's where it originates, and it flows all the way from there, all the way through, like I say, Kuna, Nampa, and into Caldwell.
Great.
And
Another one.
sorry, that Karen had asked that question. It goes into the Boise River. It goes directly to the Boise River. Downtown, the part that you're seeing here is actually only maybe a mile or a mile and a half from the Boise River. So every water quality improvement that happens in downtown Boise benefits the Boise River. I mean, and some of it, it's complicated. There's a little plumbing going on. Some of it also goes into the Riverside Canal.
Yes, some of it does. But yes, and so again, the things that we're doing here to enhance the water quality as it flows through Caldwell certainly enhances the Boise River system itself.
Great. And could you speak a little bit to the significance of the downtown Caldwell area to Native Americans, and any stories related to the project about the tribes?
To be honest with you, I apologize. I would not be the one to respond to that. I know Denny Cannon could probably give me some information. So I apologize. I'm not really equipped to answer that question, but if I could, I'll certainly get some information for you.
And that was from John McLean.
Yeah, and I do apologize.
Which I believe is a business.
Yeah, I don't have that information just readily, and so rather than say something incorrect, I would, if I may, I'll just defer that question and see if I can get you the information.
That's a good call. Okay, and then here's another one from Scott White. Is there a list of Caldwell businesses available who provided funding for or any support for the projects?
To be honest with you, a lot of those businesses downtown, part of the original core area steering group, were Carpenter Screen Printing, the Anderson Insurance Agency, oh my gosh, it just escaped my mind. Hartwell Corporation, I apologize, Ray Wolf and Hartwell Corporation. There was also a lot of cooperation from many of the businesses, but to be honest with you, those few businesses that I mentioned were kind of the key and the heart of that. Also Caxton Printers, Scott Gibson and Dave Gibson and that family were very essential in the beginning stages of this. But to be honest with you, we bought the properties, and so it was really just a collaborative effort more of time than it was actual money. The funding of the project itself was all done through grants and or the Urban Renewal Agency, and so we purchased all those projects. So really, the donation was time, and so many of those downtown businesses donated their time in putting, participating on the core area steering committee. And again, that was 20 plus years ago. So if I may, I can certainly supply you with the names of the members of the original core area steering committee. And then we had the phase 2 core area committee, which then once the creek opened as far as the development of the downtown, and we can get you those names. But some of the key players in the beginning were Caxton Printers, Carpenter Screen Printing, Anderson Insurance. Those were some of the main players in the beginning. George Crookham with Crookham Company was also very helpful with some of the process. But again, I probably left somebody out, and I apologize. I didn't mean to.
Well, that was quite a few there, so probably got the most of them. So well done. And so I think we're coming up about like 3 minutes to the top of the hour here. So if there's any more burning questions, please ask them in the chat box. But I think we actually got through them all. And there's one that just came in, but I would just maybe ask you, Mayor, what would be the best way for somebody to reach out and get any follow-up information about?
I think Liz has my email address or my phone number, and we'd be happy to. Actually, the city website has much of this on the city website. And again, reach out to me personally. I'm happy to answer any information. I saw a real quick question. The Section 206 is no longer available, but it was a grant process using Army Corps of Engineer funding to repair for riparian habitat restoration. And so that's the funding that we used, but it's no longer available. It was something that was discontinued, as I mentioned, right in the middle of this project. If I may, I'd like to close with with this, my favorite poem, and it talks about what we're trying to do here. And it goes like this. An old man going along highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and wide and deep with waters rolling cold and deep. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, the sullen stream had no fears for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Good friend, said a fellow pilgrim, you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending of day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed this chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at eventide? The builder lifted his old gray head. You see in the path I have come, he said, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that was as naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. Now see, that's what we use to build this creek. We're building this for future generations. It's not so much for me, but it's those that come after us. That's the concept we've used with the city of Caldwell to try to build a bridge to the future so that the children and families that come behind us have a much more beautiful, friendly, safe, wonderful place to raise their families and to live. So that's the concept that we use in the city of Caldwell, and that's what was inspired us to build this bridge and create this project. So thank you very much for having me today. I am honored that you want to know more about the city of Caldwell and our Indian Creek project. So Liz and everybody, Adam, thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Mayor Nancolas. I just want to put into the record, John McLean, John and Donna are on our thing, and they're great friend members. And he clarifies that though he's not a business, he's a private citizen, and that his mother grew up in Caldwell. Her last name was Crookham, and her mother's last name was Steunenberg. So, deep roots in Caldwell.
Boy, I'll tell you, those are huge names.
And John asked some great questions, as did the Whites and others. Let's give the mayor a wonderful round of applause, even if he can't hear it. You can use your little reaction button there and give some claps up there for him. We really appreciate his time today. And let's see here, there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can see all the little, you can hopefully see them all now. I'll stop the share. There you go. We had over 50 people on the call today on the program, and it is recorded and will show up soon on our YouTube channel. Thanks to Megan, and thanks to Adam, thanks to Louisa. And I know some people got bumped off. I think there must have been some connectivity issues, and you can catch it all on the recording if you did miss a little bit. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Bye, Liz.